So we have obviously been part of we have obviously been part of conversations where people don't think that they need a training plan or a training coach. But the reality is that even as active duty operators, we still have training plans. We still have training coaches. But if you're not already in and as an operator in special tactics, where do you go? Trent, where do you go?
I go to my man, Kevin Edgerton. He runs 18 Alpha Fitness. He's been through a few different selection courses and worked in a few different selection courses. I've personally seen the results of his work in the Air Force selection process, and his results are amazing. So not only has he been through the courses and knows what he's doing, but he also has all the credentials to back it up. So he's very educated, and yeah, he's a person I trust, not just with me, but with my family when it comes to fitness and recovery and all those other types of things. And also, I think jiu-jitsu as well, right, Aaron? I think you're the jiu-jitsu guy.
He is.
Has Kevin ever hurt you?
Well, he actually has. Kevin and I have rolled together, so that's the great thing about Kevin, right? Is he literally practices what he preaches. He's out there, he's testing all of his programs, he's working out. If he's not video coaching and he's not doing something by distance, man, he is down in the trenches still. And that guy has had a long career. He's a 20-year special forces guy. Ended up being a strength and conditioning coach, and now here he is with standardized plans for everybody. Like, hey, if you want to go to special forces, he's got that base framework, but he does individualized plans and does individualized coaching for you as well. So it's not just something you're going to buy and he says, hey, you're off and you're on your way. He's engaged literally from the start of your journey all the way to the end. He's got a great track record with getting people ready for assessment selection. And like I said, man, there's nothing better than somebody that's actually doing the things that you're doing as well and seeing some success from. So head on over to 18alphafitness.com. That's 18alphafitness.com. You can find his entire website. You can also find him on Instagram at 18alphafitness. It's the easiest way. Just hit him up. Use our code ONEREADY. You can hit Kevin up direct on the DMs, and that'll get you a discount. And once again, 18alphafitness.com. If you want to get ready and you want to get into the pipeline, whatever that pipeline is, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Kevin can get you there, and he's got the experience to do so. So go check him out, 18 Alpha Fitness. Wolf Cup just ready to go.
Everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room, and we've got Chief Tommy Case back with us for round two. Luckily, or hopefully, when we've released this, we've done it sequentially. So you will have already been aware of all the stuff that Chief Case did during the Haditha Dam, being awarded his first Silver Star, and all those great things that the TACPs, Rangers, and all those folks out there on the Haditha Dam did some pretty incredible things. Like that story, if you haven't watched that or listened to that, definitely go check it out because it's an awesome story to hear. And hey, what the hell? It's therapeutic for all of us to even talk about it, especially for Tommy. So, but that's not your first Silver Star. You have a second one. So I think I alluded to it before, but like you're one of three that have ever been awarded 2 Silver Stars within the Air Force. So, definitely want to talk about it more. So welcome back. And any words of wisdom before we even get into this second Silver Star?
Beaches, I'm sorry, man. You kind of cut up on me a little bit and froze for a second.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. No worries. Go right in. Second Silver Star.
Oh, shit. Second Silver
Just start talking about stuff.
So I'd be remiss without mentioning how that kind of came to be, like how I ended up in that situation, because it's kind of unique. And when I look back, I look on it as a leadership team that looked at a dude, me, and being like, this guy hasn't been responsible for anything but himself, and he's kind of he's been a tech star. He's been an E6 now for a hot minute, right? So I was sitting in doing the Ranger reconnaissance thing for several years, for many years, and one of the guys who got a Silver Star with me on the first one, I mentioned him in part one, Eric Brandenburg Brandy. I think he was sitting as the op soup, and then Matt Schleich, MS, who both those guys just nothing but respect for, was sitting as the squadron superintendent. They came to the RRD office, at the squadron there, and they're like, "Hey, man, we want to send you back to the flight and support 3rd Ranger Battalion." And it's like the timing was impeccable because I was things like, man, I need to do something like more. I need some responsibility. Like I need to learn to be a leader in the Air Force. I need to learn to be a leader in the military. Like I need to learn to do these things. And I said, yeah, man, like I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to shave the beard. I'm ready to freaking put the uniform back on. I'm ready to get back after it. And they kind of looked at me with wild eyes, big eyes, and they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, because a lot of the guys would fight that, right? Because they've like, I'm the cool guy. I'm doing the cool guy stuff. I'm doing the stuff that I've wanted to do. I was living literally the TACP, if not just kind of the Air Force soft dream of that mission set. And I think they were concerned that I was going to hang on to that door jam and not want to leave that office and screaming no. So I embraced it. And I went across, we're literally across the hallway. Shay put a uniform back on, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, you're not going to be the flight chief, in charge of all these guys. You're going to be the assistant flight chief. You've got to get reintegrated back into the cycle and how third Ranger Battalion does stuff. After I'd been doing Ranger reconnaissance from, holy shit, man, from basically 2003 to 2008. And
that was a long time to be on that team.
Yeah,
like that is.
It was
like I don't think people fully realize like what the ops tempo is, what the actual life is. Like even when you're at home, the training cycle is brutal.
It was especially as a TACP guy in our community of 1Z, right? Back then, before it was that, but for us, it was like the creme de la creme. It was the wet dream of special operations, man. It was. We did really, really cool stuff. Built a really, really awesome resume doing those types of things. But I went back across the hallway and got geared up and started reintegrating to 3rd Ranger Battalion stuff. And it was good, man. Like everybody hates MLATs. Everybody hates jumping to airplanes at night on static line. Like it sucks. Everybody hates landing on the tarmac. Hopefully you can slip away. But if you're a meat missile like myself, there's not a whole lot of slip on. And I just kind of embraced it. And man, when I look back at my time of going back to that flight, like it was probably hands down the best time of my military life. It was so awesome. The guys that I had were amazing. The chance that I had an opportunity to lead these guys, and they're all NCOs, and to lead these guys across several nations when we would deploy. And just to be integrated with those guys, like that, to me, that's the biggest reward. Damn the medals on your chest, damn the chest salad, right? Like to be integrated with those guys, be part of those guys was just an amazing experience to me. And obviously, as you guys well know, is that they're I am diehard friends with those guys, and I'm fans of those guys till the end of time, whatever that looks like. But we fast forward, right? And it was a challenge in. I know we're getting to the Silver Star, man. Trust me, we are.
You're good. You're good. You do. Hey,
listen.
This
you do.
Is one of those
You're
things
just here to tell a story. I'm here to shut the fuck up and listen. You know what I mean?
There was a knife head somewhere in there.
As the four of us all know, the challenges of leadership, right? Especially when you're leading. The challenges of leadership, especially when you're trying to lead a team of, you might outrank them by a rank or two, but really the challenge of leadership of your peers, right? You're trying to herd cats, and we would do things. A guy named Ross Robinson recently retired. He retired as an 04. God bless him. Was a Ranger TACP enlisted guy, and he was in Iraq. I was in Afghanistan, and what we would do, as you guys well know, is we go out on the big mission. We hit a target, and we put it up on the high side on Sipper there about what the mission entailed. It would go up all the way at a minimum to the 720th STG commander at the time, and it might go up to ACC or AFSOC A3 operations lead there or whatever it is. Just kind of like a roll up of what happened that night. And he says he types in his computer. He's in Iraq. He's like, rolled out on the big mish, and I'm paraphrasing. Rolled out on the big mish, hit a target. I thought it wasn't the right target to begin with. Initiated breach, caught the building on fire, burned it to the ground. Realized it wasn't the proper target anyway. Should have called that mission Operation Clown Shoes. And I'm like reading this shit, and I like goddamn, dude, like this is fast forward to the East Coast time, right? Like, no, like, trying to get a hold of this guy in Iraq, like, dude, you got to change that. You cannot put that in there. Like, people that matter are going to read this, people that matter way more than you and I do, above us, he's like, fine, Sergeant, I'll change it, stuff like that. And, man, like, I could go through the list of the guys that were in that flight with me and just, I have nothing bad to say about them. Pete Muley, freaking Jesse Tillman, Jim Lurk, an AC-130 guy was the ALO. Like, all those guys are just, just amazing. TJ Gunnell, who's doing his Congress thing or whatever he's doing up in freaking Washington, D.C. Andre Vanzo, who just retired. And all these guys are high achievers, as you guys are well aware of. Like, these guys operate at a different capacity than just the average service member.
Well, even the average special operator, like, those guys are talented. Those guys are talented in a room full of talented men.
Beyond just an amazing people, right? So that happened around the mid 2008, give or take, and I deployed in 2008. And what was cool about it is I went back to the strike force at 3rd Range Battalion, so platoon level ops. 40 people plus 40 of your best friends every night when we go out on a mission. And John Lancaster ended up being the platoon sergeant. He was my former team leader. So I was like, dude, this is awesome. There's familiarity there. I've got this guy that's leading the platoon, and we're also really good. We're bros. So I got there in 2008, went down range, did some stuff, dropped a lot of bombs. Well, not a lot of bombs. It was Afghanistan. This was kind of hit or miss, went out in the backyard, waged war in the battle space owners, the conventional army's backyard, and made sure that they weren't taking IEDs in the face and during daylight ops and all that stuff. And when we got through that rotation, 2009, went back to the same location, Salerno, Koust, Afghanistan. And it was kind of a wash, rinse, repeat. So we had HIMARS out there, so we were launching. We're hitting terror training camps all across the Koust Guardians Pass up there in the Hindu Kush mountain range that extended from India all the way through Nepal and Pakistan, everywhere. And this one night, they're like, we're going to go hit this target. And I named my dog. Well, actually, I'm going to say that for a minute. So just remind me just say dog and I'll remember.
Got it. I'm your guy.
All right, Aaron. Thanks, buddy.
I'm here for you, Chief.
It was up high enough where the 47s, the MH-47s, the helicopters couldn't insert a full-on force, because of lift and issues. It was summertime, so it was hot. So they basically airlifted like 8 of us at a time, and they put us in the HLZ up on the mountains. And we just kind of sat there as they just cycled through Salerno to go get more dudes and go get more dudes and go get more dudes till we established the fighting force. And then we started walking. And I'm probably halfway through the rotation now, and you guys know, man, you guys go on those rotations, and everybody gets skinny. You can tell I have not deployed in a while.
How dare you? You built like a fire hydrant looking MFU.
So we started walking, and what happens is every night before, or every time before you go on the mission, whoever's going to be the point man, the guy leading the assault force, you take all our Garmin Fortrex wrist Garmins, plug them in, and download the route for everybody. So I had this Garmin on my wrist, and we're walking, and I'm kind of in the middle of the formation, and Carmen Bucci is a ground force commander. He's a lieutenant colonel now in the Army. He was a captain at the time. Like, one of the best people I know. So Carmen Bucci, if you listen to this is a shout out to you, homie. One of the best people I know. Just an awesome dude. And I'm walking in the middle of formation, and behind me I have a gal named Casey, a female major. And she was with the cultural support teams that they had at the time, where for the audience, you put these females on this team that went through this little kind of selection thing about who they could support special operations. But they were critical to the mission because they could talk to kids and they could talk to the women. And, women are comfortable talking to women, especially in that culture of Afghanistan, and just drive a lot of intel and a lot of good things. And it's true. Kids only lie to their parents, man, because those kids would just squawk, and tell you everything about village life. So we're walking, and we take a tactical halt up to the target area, and it's 2 platoons. So I've got Lauren Bell, who worked for me, great friend of mine. He's with the other platoon. They inserted first. He's down low in a valley where part of this camp was, and we're going to go up on the high ground. And we stopped for a minute, and she's like, "Hey, TC, I don't know if I'm going to make it." And we were smoked, right? Because it's a steep ass mountain, and we're walking up this old Jeep trail thing, man. And I looked at her, and I was like, "That's why we stopped, man. Because the fact that you're saying that, and this gal's in shape, Casey McGraw, she's in shape." I said, "There's a reason why we stopped." Because
shout out to all those CSTs. I worked with them in Hellman down in Bastion. Like one of the Ranger Bats had the CSTs. First of all, can we all stop talking about women in special operations? They've been there forever. So shut up and move on with your specific life, number one. And then number two.
Wild turkey.
Yeah. And number two, those cultural support teams, we used to affectionately call them the fembots because they were in ridiculous shape and they were like robots. They were unbelievable. So shout out to those CSTs back in the day.
Thanks for that, Aaron. They're amazing. They are amazing women in let's call it what it is in special operations, right? So she's like, "Man, I don't know if I'm going to make it up this hill." And I was like, "Ma'am, there's a reason why we stopped, because the point man right now is thinking the same thing you are. And by the way, I'm thinking the same thing you are because this fucking sucks." So we caught our breath, got our bearing. We continued the trudge up, and we stopped again. I don't know, half hour later, whatever it was, and I looked down at my Garmin Vortex on my forearm, and I looked at it, and I'm like, we're not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be several hundred meters over on this ridge line coming across. So I grabbed Carmen Bucci. It's nighttime. We're all in our NVGs and everything. I kind of grabbed him. I was like, "Hey, sir, we're not where we're supposed to be." About that same time, the U-28 that was flying Overwatch hits up. He's like, "Hey, are you guys planning to not go on the route provided?" I didn't acknowledge.
Great input.
I didn't acknowledge them.
Great input, guy.
Exactly. Thanks, buddy. So I tell Carmen Bucci, the ground force commander, was like, "We're not on the planned route." And about that time, just all hell breaks loose. And we're in the low ground. And anybody who follows Sun Tzu and anybody's got a lick of common tactical sense is, if you want to dominate your enemy, you take the high ground. And they've been up there. God knows how long they've been up there. But the way they were dug in the foliage, we just never saw them on when they were building pattern of life stuff up there. So kind of all hell breaks loose. And I remember distinctly, I'm like, here we go. And you guys will know, the ground's picking up in front of you from rounds hitting in front of your feet, and, bark's flying off these trees because it was very deciduous and very big forest up there. And I don't know what happened, man. Like, I would love to be the guy at the bar to pick up the chick. I have Kathy. I don't need to pick up a chick. But if I was sitting in park stories, I was carrying 2 radios. I had a 148 emitter and a Prick 152, and the wires to my 152 somehow had separated. I would love to say that a bullet went flying through the air and separated those lines, but I might be a liar. I don't know how those things got torn. Maybe it was, maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe I got caught on something in my panic, and I tore them. Like, I don't know what happened, and I'm trying to call for the gunship to come in. But I can't get a hold of them because those wires to that push to talk to the radio were severed. And instead of me being like a genius at the moment and taking my other radio that's on the command net and the assault net and like rolling it over to the fires net and having that secondary comms, I start thinking like I need to hold my wires together. Maybe by the grace of God, I'll be able to make comms with our angels above us, right? And that's what I did, man. It was stupid at the moment. It was just fucking dumb. Yeah, dude. Like, Pete, stop laughing at me, man. Like, laugh with me, please. But
I'm laughing with you because we've all been in that situation where once you take a step back, you're like, why didn't I just flip the radio channel over?
I just do this?
Like,
why am I so dumb?
Got your own internal after action review going on, right? And but I did. I held those wires together, and by the grace of God, literally, I firmly believe that, or whoever your creator is, of what you believe, I don't care. is I'm like, hey man, troops in contact, blah 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 blah. And of course, as you guys will know, the gunship comes across with this calm, cool, collective voice from the FOCO. Okay, we've got you. And if you listen to the tapes now, you could hear the crew of that aircraft going like, is somebody trying to contact us? Like, what is this fool trying to say? Like, why can't you just come up on normal comms? Like, what is wrong with this guy?
They're so calm. You know why? It's not their emergency. That's why. That's why they're so calm. There.
It was my emergency, which is why I panicked when I shouldn't have.
Exactly.
Well, it was controlled panic because I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't think through the problem and rotate the other radio and be up on comms. They came back across the net. I'm calling danger close. Charlie Bravo is the initials, and they came across the net. They're like, "Hey, we got to wait till we're on your backside." And I was like, "Why? That's stupid. I need rounds now." He's like, "Because if I shoot now, those rounds are going to skip down the mountain into friendlies, versus if on the backside of you, we're shooting into the enemy, and those rounds are skipping up the mountain." I'm like, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
No, it makes perfect sense. Exactly. Yeah, thanks. That's good input. Yeah, don't shoot in front of me then. Thanks, gunship guy. Finally.
And I'd be remiss, man. Like the gunship crew was fucking amazing, man. Like those guys, and maybe gals on board. Those guys collectively, they were the saviors of the fight, not the guy on the ground. You know, not the JTAC on the ground with the soft force. And as I'm holding my wires together, they put the first rounds of this is an old U-boat, AC-130U. They put 25 millimeter down within 15 meters of us, which is like, I guess at the time was like unheard of. And as they
did they mean to do that, or did it just land 15 meters from you?
I requested 25 millimeter because 40 millimeter would have put us in the frag pattern. So it's kind of a wing in the air, you know. And to be honest with you, Trent, it didn't fucking matter, dude, because like we're literally getting shot the shit up, you know.
Yeah.
And before they employed, I looked at the enablers. So we had the CST gal who we talked about earlier. We had a tactical PSYOPs guy. All these enablers that are part of the package, and they're kind of they didn't know what to do. I think this is probably most of them was their first instance of being in a firefight, and nothing against them. It is what it is, right? And I took control of them, and I grabbed them by the scruff of the back of their neck, and I was like, put them in the prone. I was like, point your M4 over there. If anything moves over there, just fucking shoot. Like, that's all you need to do. Like, don't get up until I tell you to. And Carmen is like trying to monitor the battle. It's like doing his thing, and these rounds like smack the earth. And I was like, holy shit, man, because it was dust, gunpowder, sticks, and deciduous trees just exploding in front of you. And your visibility was zero at night under NVGs. And I'm just kind of like, that's what we need. I need more of that. You know, it's like doing what you're doing. And about this time, I'm trying to coordinate a little bit with the ground force coming with Carmen Bucci, and he's kind of he knows what's going on. He's a little bit disoriented. He's trying to figure out where the front line traces, where his most forward troops are up the mountain. And these two guys come running down the mountain, and they're shooting at us with M4s. I felt like I could see them in daytime. I saw them in under my NVGs, and I had the little orange filters on it, so they were kind of orange, or the light around me the ambient light around me was a kind of orange color. And I kind of got in front of them, and I got in front of them. I kind of pushed them down, and I picked up my M4 and I smoked those two dudes coming down the mountain. And he looked at me. He's like, "What are you shooting at, man?" I'm like, "Those two dudes are about to kill you." He said, "Oh," and I was like, we continued with the engagement. And he was in the prone. I was standing up to make sure those rounds were hitting where I wanted them to hit, right? And we continued the engagement. And I remember Carmen was laying on the ground in the prone with his hands over his helmet, and he's screaming. My call sign at the time, which under the new guys, I won't say it on the air, but he's like, so-and-so, you know, call sign, what the fuck are you doing? Verbatim. And he's screaming it over the gunship engagements, PKM shooting up, popping off at us for the high. You know, people run down the mountain at us and everything else. And I had this moment where I was like, I've got to make sure he's sure. I got to make sure he knows he's okay. Yeah, that he can command. And I just looked at him. I got down on one knee. And I was like, "Hey, sir, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Just remember, you're with the best. And we pounded each other, right? And about that time,
Golly.
yeah, he's like, okay, man, just keep doing what you're doing, right? I'm like, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just trying to survive, dude. And this guy walks past behind me from the enabler section, and I looked over and I'm like, dude, where are you going? He's like, I'm the first sergeant. I go where I want. I'm like, carry on. You know?
Yeah, right. All right, first sergeant, have a good day.
Billy Pulley, great American, great Ranger, Army guy, like mad love for this dude, right? I'll tell you a story about him here in a little bit. But I looked at the ground force commander. I was like, I've got to get up the mountainside, and I got to get to the frontline trace. You know, and we'd done many danger close missions with 25 millimeters at that point. And he's like, so I started going up this mountain, and you're literally you're on your hands and knees trying to climb this mountain, and it's sandy, and it's shale, and it's nighttime, and it fucking sucks. Meanwhile, I've been trying to pass the gunship off to the FO, to the forward observer. I couldn't get anything from him because he was much pass him off for the frontline trace because he was supposed to be closer than I was. Could never get him on the radio. As I'm climbing up this mountainside, I ran into him. I was like, dude, like, why are you not answering your radio? And I got no response from him. He was just sitting on his butt, knees up into his chest, kind of rocking back and forth, with his M4 kind of between his chest and his thighs, with no response. Like, you know, an E3, a private first class in the Army, like no response. And man, I got to tell you guys, man, I was pissed. I was like, are you fucking kidding me, man? Like, why are you not responsive? But then again, folks are different folks, right? And we can talk about the science of all that stuff till we're blue in the face. But I was like, whatever, man. Like, this guy's worthless. I got to get up the mountain. And he's not worthless, man. Like, some people are cut up for it. Some people aren't, you know, and God bless them. But in the moment of a significant emotional event, you're like, kind of WTF, dude.
So did he get it together? Because sometimes those people just need, you know, just like, you know, Carmine did, or I'm sorry, what was it? What was his first name?
Carmen.
Your other, yeah, Carmen. Just like Carmen did, he just might need like snapped out of that moment. Like, did your forward observer ever snap out of that moment and reorient, or was he just done?
As a matter of fact, I believe he was sent home not too long after when we exited.
Wow.
I don't know, the following day.
Wow.
Great delight. But I get up the mountain, and I ran into a guy named Danny. Another, like, man, I can't think of a Ranger who I would want to, you know, MF. You know, like these guys, I love them. I love them all. And Danny, and I'm like, what's going on? And meanwhile, I'm still using the gunship. And now I've kind of graduated to 40 millimeters, kind of expanded that footprint, you know, and now we're not like on top of each other, shooting at each other. And I said, what are you guys doing? And he's like, there's a couple bad guys inside that tree line in a machine gun nest, and it's hardened. So we're just trying to figure out how to get them out of there. And they were way too close for gunship. And we're standing there in the open. It's nighttime, so they can't really see us per se. But we're standing there in the open, and I was like, huh. And I was kind of like, well, what are you guys going to do about it? He's like,
what a good looking question.
We're talking through it. I'm like, I didn't have any grenades on me. I didn't have any frags. I'm like, you got a grenade on you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, let me see it. So he hands me this grenade, pull the pin, pop the spoon, throw it in that freaking machine gun nest inside the tree line. It goes off. I walk in there and I pop two dudes in the head. Like, these guys are like, what the fuck, Air Force? Like, why is the Air Force guy doing this? And I'm like, that's a great question. Why is the Air Force doing this?
You know, I have other things to do.
Yeah.
I could be doing other stuff. Like, I don't need these additional duties of machine gun nest clearing.
I'm having fun, but I would much rather be playing Scrabble back at the FOB right now.
I'd love to be the fires TACP. It would be great, but I'm not. I'm not sitting at the fires desk guy, and now I'm out here doing your job. Can we get somebody up here, please?
Rangering it up.
Yeah. So that happened. Actually, I'm pretty proud of that as an Air Force guy, chucking a grenade in combat. Like, how many of us, right? Not very many, right? It's freaking cool. So I took care of that. Of course, as soon as I did that, I came out of that. You know, the young Ranger privates and specialists, they just opened up with their whatever weapons and just like shot a bunch of dead people. And I was smart enough to know that it's nighttime. We're engaging. Chances are really, really high that some of these guys, bad guys, they probably run off the target through the woods, whatever be the case. And Carmen Bucci came up on the command. I fixed my radio. Didn't really fix it. I switched it over. The ground force commander, Carmen, and I had talked about it briefly before I climbed that mountain. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be on the fires net. Please, his two radios were still good. So he went over the fires net, and that's how him and I would communicate with the ground force commander in order to just get through that kind of event, if you will. And he comes up on my net and he says, hey, man, I need you to come to me. And I said, I don't know where you are. He's like, you M249, the saw? I'm like, yes, I hear that off in the distance. He's like, that's where I'm at. Come this way. I'm like, okay. And then, like, I had this moment of clarity where I'm like, I could walk over there. I could walk through the forest and go try to find him at night under nods during a firefight. Or I could stay here surrounded with another 20 dudes. And then when we figure out what's really going on, I can go link up with him. Because I was thinking to myself, I can walk through the woods to his location. And it sounded, I don't know how far he was, man, but it seemed like it was like 200 plus meters away. But if I did that, I could easily get rolled up out here in the middle of the woods. And then I'm going to have my head cut off on YouTube. I was like, I came up back on the net. I was like, hey, dude, I think I'm just going to stay here.
Hey, I'm
thinking to myself, like,
I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, man. I'm surrounded by
We'll link up later.
20, 30 Army Rangers, and I'm very comfortable. Like, this is okay with me, and that's what I did. And I linked up with him a little bit later, but he was just like, as a ground force commander, like, the relationship you want with your GFC, if you're the fires guy, man, is that one where he's just like, we talked about it in episode 1 with Dave Doyle, who's my company commander in Haditha back in 2003. And this is 2009, so fast forward 6 years, right? Where he's just like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. I trust you. And that's the most important thing is trust in that freedom and maneuver on the battlefield in order to, because, man, we collectively, everybody on this sitting right here now, Aaron, Trent, Peaches, myself, like, we collectively want every good guy to return home, right? Like, that's what we want to do. And anybody who says otherwise is, well, number one, they're lying, and number two, they're just an idiot or they're a sociopath. Like, I want everybody to go home to mama. I want everybody to go home to Junior. I want everybody to go home to dad, or whatever that looks like. And that's what we did that night. And that's what we did. As we transitioned from that period of darkness into the period of daylight, we were walking around. We were blown in places, weapons caches and tents, and it's a terror training camp up there that we stumbled upon. And I had Apaches on station. It's daytime, so they're just kind of flying around. I'm not doing a whole lot. The firefight is done. It's over. Poor Lauren Bell, the other TACP with his platoon that was on the lower ground. The way they inserted, they actually probably did it right, because I think I passed him the gunship one time that night, and he did a quick 105 round on some dude that was like trying to hide in a tree, and then he passed it back to me, and that's all. Like, his night was fairly boring. Like, he sat there and just watched this fight go down on the ridgeline up there, and
just pissed.
Well,
just mad the whole time.
It's boring, man. He got plenty of his own gun time later on down the road, right? But I remember I had the Apaches on station, just flying around, like, doing their thing. And then my ALO, great guy, recently retired, a guy named Jim Lurk, who I love to death. He hits me up. I'm sitting next to Carmen Bucci, the ground force commander, and his radio guy. And the radio guy, Collins, looks at me and he says, "Hey, Sergeant, ALO wants to talk to you on SAT." I'm like, okay. So I plugged into his. I'm like, go for striker. And this is on SAT. He's like, hey, I need you to work an extension with the Apaches. And I don't know why, man. It really kind of irked me. I'm like, you're the fucking ALO. Like, do your job. I'm like, literally, the Apaches are flying from the battle space runner who's on the same fob as we were. Like, why can't you pick up the phone and call them and extend it? And I was like, copy all, please do that for me. Call the BSO and, things I just talked about. A couple minutes go by. Hey, Sergeant, the ALO wants to talk to you. I'm like, God damn. I plugged in. I'm like, go for strike. Whatever. He's like, hey, I'm going to need you to ask the Apaches to extend. And I didn't really think of the repercussions and who was listening to this. This is like the entire task force SATNet, right? Satellite net. And I'm like, hey, man, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to need you to pick up the phone. I'm going to need you to call the battle space owner, probably the S3 Air, and request an extension from the conventional guys. If you could do that for me, that would be great. And I don't hear anything back, so I just unplug and I'm like, whatever. Hey,
Just go along with my life.
Hey, Sergeant, Major so-and-so wants to talk to you. I'm like, the Strike Force commander. I'm like, I plug in, and I'm like, yep. He's like, hey, request an extension. That's all we're going to talk about. Get it done. And we'll talk about this when you get home. Out. I'm like, shit. Okay. So I never did that. I fucking work it. I was so mad.
I never did that.
I spent all night fighting, man. I spent all night in the significant emotional event, man. And you're gonna ask me, why can't you do that simple task? Why can't you do that? And in his defense, it wasn't that big of a deal. I was already in conflict with those guys. So it would have been an easy thing to do, And it's something I could have easily just done, but on principle, I was being stubborn. I don't know what my problem was. So when we pretty much killed everybody in that training camp, blew up all their shit. It was a great night. It was a fun night. It was an emotional night. It was everything you could think of the OK Corral, right? What a time to be alive, And when we exfilled, I got back to the FOB. I got back to Salerno. It was daytime. Got off the helicopter, walked back to the compound, walked into the assault dock where we worked at, put my kid away in the cubby, and I'm like, I need to go into the jock because I'm gonna have to probably answer some questions. So I walked into the jock, and the Strike Force commander, Colonel Tobin Magsig, he's actually a super guy, really great guy. I walked in there. He's like, "Hey TC, can I talk to you in the VTC room?" And I said, and I kind of figured that this was going to happen. I just knew, and let's just go get it over with, right? So we walk into the VTC room, and he's like, "Hey man," and God bless him. The way he approached me is he understood, and rightfully so, as a Strike Force commander, that we had just been through something significant, and it's probably not a time to be like, lock it up, fucker, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to do, right? He was kind of he's like, "Hey man, hey dude, listen, TC, you cannot talk to us that way on the radio." And he says, I know you guys had a time last night. He's like, and I recognize that. I'm like, but he's like, I cannot have you talking to me like that on the radio or to Captain Lurk. And I was like, I was a tech sergeant at the time. I was like, sir, I wholeheartedly agree with you. You are absolutely correct. He's like, well, I'm just telling you, if you talk to us like that again, I'm gonna have to send you home. And that kind of irked me a little bit. And I just looked at him, I was like, well, sir, I'm on my 13th rotation. I'm sure the wife would love it if you would send me home. And we're done here. Just be nice. And I'm like, Roger that. And we were fine. But that's the thing is that same rotation, I think, is the one I had called back to the rear to my commander at the time. And when we talk about combat stress, we talk about PTS, we talk about all that stuff that coincides with deployments. And I'm mature enough to now to know it and to understand, just because you're not getting shot at doesn't mean the deployment doesn't wear on you, especially time and time again, back to back to back. And so, I'm talking to the commander, and he's like, how's it going? It's going great, doing these things. And he says, what do you need from me? I was like, I need a break. And I talk about this stuff when I do my resiliency testimonials in front of people. And he's like, what do you mean you need a break? I was like, I need to take a knee. I can't keep doing this. He's like, well, we're doing some things on the squad, and we're building these different programs, and maybe down the road we can get you out of the rotations. And he's like, but Tommy, what I need from you, I need one more. And guys, and I know some of you can relate, and maybe some of the people listening to this that kind of lived our life in some way, shape, or form. Like every time I asked to take a knee, it always came back to like, just give me one more. Just give me one more.
There's always one more. There's always one more. You know what? Like I recently, I keep hammering. There's one guy at my unit, and he keeps showing up, and he's always in civilian clothes. And finally, I look at him the other day. I was like, "Hey, I got to be a Bob on this one. Where's your uniform?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm actually on leave today. I just came in because there's a bunch of stuff." I was like, "Get out of this squadron right now." Like we have joked, Peaches and I, back in the days of England and late 2000s, 2008, 2009. CTO was the joke. It was like CTO means come to office and get your work done.
Yeah.
After a long trip, and you will run and run and run, and no one will let you take a knee unless you really no kidding. And it's gotten to the point now where I look at the guy and I was like, get out of the unit. You're either here and you're working, or you're out on leave and you're getting that time back that we said we were going to give you. You can't, you got to do me a favor and help us protect that. I'm like, if you're not at work, don't be at work. Don't come in on leave. And I've done it.
Aaron,
I've done it.
And thank you for that, because that is, I think collectively, all of us as military leaders, like we struggle with that with the dudes and the guys and gals underneath us. Like, why would you take leave and take your laptop home? That's just dumb. You're not that.
I got mine right here. I got it right here, baby. I can go get it right now.
You are so
what's up.
dumb, Aaron.
I've never learned, and I'm not saying I've ever figured it out. My work-life balance, terrible. It's awful.
Well, I mean, your things are really, really efficient because I clear all my emails out whether I action them or not. But anyway,
nice.
So fast forward.
If they need you, they'll call you.
What's the funny thing is, like, several years removed, I ended up in Hawaii at the 25th Air Support Operations Squadron out there supporting the Conventional Army. And I was an E8 at the time, and my commander, who told me to give me one more over and over and over again, had retired. He was in Hawaii, and he hits me up. He's like, hey, man, let's grab a beer or whatever. I'm like, cool, let's grab a beer. So we went down to the Windward Bar there at Whole Foods in Kailua on Oahu. My wife was with me, and I don't go far without Kathy. I just don't. She's my she's probably a little more of a crutch than she deserves to be, but she provides me a certain level of comfort in public places that's, in my mind, is not necessary, but in a normal people's life, it is, in my mind, it is necessary, but in a normal people's life, it's not necessary. I don't like to go far without her. So she goes with me, and we have a beer, and we're talking, and we get done with this beer, and I'm thinking to myself this whole time talking to him, like, why am I even talking to this guy? Like, I didn't like him as a commander. He's a good person. He's a great American. He's a patriot, man. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, why am I having a beer with this guy? Like, he caused me more mental trauma than he probably could even understand just by saying one more, And so we get at the tail end of our beer. He's like, hey, man, it was great seeing you, man. Like, we should totally do this again. And I was just like, no. Like, we're not going to do this again. Of course, Kathy's looking at me, she's kind of mortified. She's like, oh, my God, like, what are you about to do? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I asked you to take a knee. So many of us asked to take a knee, but it was just one more because you never walked a mile in our shoes. Like, you went on your battlefield rotations with the regimental commander on the Army side and did those things. I'm like, you understood it, but you never lived it. Like, when we asked for one more, like, when we asked for a timeout, like, give us a timeout. And I just looked at him and was like, we're not going to do this again. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're not going to have a beer again. I don't care if I ever talk to you again. And I'm okay with that. And to me, that was a moment where it's like, it was a needed moment for me just to say, no, dude, we're not friends, retired or not.
Yeah.
But again, with that portion of the story of who Tom Case is, like, that doesn't denigrate or take away who he is as an American. Like, I recognize that. But I don't have to be friends with everybody. You know what I mean? But going back to 2009, when we got ready to, and man, that rotation just in itself, I'm probably going to get in trouble here, but that was Objective McKinley, and that's what I named my dog after, is McKinley. And, and it's kind of like, if you know moments. And I've had several Ranger buddies that are like, oh my God, you named your dog after the thing we did. Yeah, because McKinley, we were up last night partying with the neighbors. So she's still in bed with mom. I picked her up last time, but that dog has probably saved me more than she would ever really know mentally. But on that same note, the first sergeant I referenced, who was walking up behind us, I'm like, where the fuck are you going? He's like, I'm the first sergeant. I go where I want. I'm like, roger that, first sergeant. We're packing up. We just cleared customs out of Salerno. We're going to take a C-17 out of Salerno, which was a first. I was like, this is awesome. And head home back to the States. And he walked up to me. He's like, hey, TC. I'm like, hey, Shirt. Billy Pouliot, such a good dude. And he's just like, hey, man, you outrangered every ranger this entire rotation. He's like, you're
Get it,
guy. And he's like, I just want you to know that I appreciate you. And man, medals aside, like, take everything off of our chest, right? Like, just him saying that was more rewarding from an Army guy talking to the guy who's aligned to an Army unit. And to say those things was like, to me, that was super important, and to me, that was a way to express to my dudes, to my Air Force guys, like, it's important that you outrange the Rangers. It's important that you out-Army the Army. It's important that you out-SEAL the SEALs. Because when we do that and we apply our tactical prowess, like Peaches is a patch, I know you love that word, our tactical prowess, and how we do business and what we do for a living, like, man, we're not in it to go out there and just shoot people in the face, man. Like, what we do, regardless of what your one Zulu specialty is in special warfare, like, what we do is, like, we literally save lives. Sometimes we save lives by taking lives. Most of the times that's what we do is on the JTAC side, we save lives by taking lives, and that same story, and Peaches and I were talking about this the other day, is the fact that I think the Air Force collectively has forgotten, as an enterprise, not everybody, that our responsibility and our job is to kill people, and that
we're in the business of war fighting. We just had this talk, and that's a thing that that's what we're here to do.
I remember when I was at NCOA, Non-Commissioned Officers Academy, at Tyson McGee in 2010 with a tech sergeant, was literally like, the instructor's like, you are in combat arms. I was like, holy shit! They'll tell me this at professional military education on the Air Force side, like, all right, like, we're in combat arms. And
all right,
people and I try to relay that all the way up to my admin troop sitting at the front of the group there where I work at. Like, you guys realize you're in the business of killing people. You may not be pulling the trigger, but you're an enabler to that. And trying to get these people to understand, like, the Air Force is a great job. It's a cush job at the end of the day. It's a good paycheck. It's great benefits, like, all these things. But we just need to be reminded on occasion, like, yeah, man, that's nice. And I'm glad you got this great insurance plan. And I'm glad you're doing, like, cool stuff. But at the end of the day, you're here to kill people. Whether you're doing, it takes 1 to 17 people to deploy one individual. So it's not just the operator going downrange. There's a whole team behind them that gets them downrange, and they're part of that kill chain. And and that's important for me to be reminded of, and it's important for me to remind people of. That's kind of what we do. So in a nutshell, Objective McKinley up at 10,500 feet. It fucking sucked. It was one of the best times of my life and one of the worst times of my life. I carry some of those scars today, especially with the give me one more conversation that it coincided with that same rotation. When and all you guys know Rob Gutierrez, Air Force Cross Combat Controller, great guy. I was inducted back in 2019, summer of 2019, into the Gathering of Eagles, and it's the Air Force's kind of their Air Power Hall of Fame, if you will. So I got my little litho up there next to some guy named Neil Armstrong. You may have heard of him, right?
I have, yeah. Neil Armstrong. And you know what? If you take Neil A and you put it backwards, that spells alien. No big deal.
So, and
he was a bus driver, right?
He's a bus driver, right? Yeah.
In awe of me thinking about it on occasion, like, I'm on the wall next to that guy. Like, that's impressive, right? and it's true. Like we walk amongst giants, and became really, really good friends out there at Gathering of Eagles with a guy named Don Beasley. You may have heard of him, but he's kind of like the godfather of modern day PJ. He's in his 80s. He's my big brother. Him and his wife and his family, his kids, his daughter Robin, just amazing guys. Like he's the guy that invented guy back in the day, the flotation devices when the capsules come back down from space and they hit the ocean, that the water initiates the flotation devices. Like he's the guy that rode around and chased Ross Perot Jr. when he flew around the world and set a world record for flying around the world in a helicopter. He chased him in a C-130 as a pararescue guy. Like he's the guy that was part of Santé, like all these things. Like the dude's a giant, and he is. He's like 6'8". He's an amazing guy. So we go out there to this Gathering of Eagle things, and I'm there with him, Mary Tengesdal, the first African American U-2 pilot, female. So not only was she African American, well, she is, but she's also a female, and she's the pilot of this U-2. I was there with a couple other guys, a guy who spent 8.5 years at the Hanoi Hilton, F4 driver, or probably just before the F4, shot down early in the war in Vietnam and didn't see his son until he was 8.5 years old when he left.
Wow.
Pregnant. To all the, to these guys who'd been to space, like an astronaut, General Chilton, who went to space and came back and still commanded an Air Force units as a commander, which is unheard of, But when I was out there for this thing, they're like, "Hey, can you go to the CMSgt Academy and do your resilience thing?" So yeah, I can do that. And my mom and dad, mom and dad are like, "Oh my gosh, Tom is doing this Gathering of Eagle things. Like, we got to be there." I'm like, and God bless. I'm like, let's go. My wife came out with me, of course, and the Air Force paid for her. So I go out there and I give this resiliency speech. I talked about one more. I talked about some other things. I talked about my divorce from my first wife. I talked about being a father. I talked about all these things that, it's one of those testimonies that I give where you show yourself as very vulnerable, right? And people look at you like, oh, he's just not some beret wearer, like hard and badass dude. Like, he's a normal person. Like, he has feelings, and sometimes he might want to cry, and that's okay.
Aw.
Yeah.
That is okay. You're in a safe space here. I don't know if you want to do it on the podcast, but
Aaron, I don't cry. I'm just saying.
Just single freedom tears, single bits of freedom escape your face.
So I sit there in front of these, 150, 200 senior NCOs that are at Senior NCO Academy there in Alabama. And I give this thing, and then I get done with it. And I walk to the back of the room, and people are coming by. They're kind of shaking my hand. And freaking Gutierrez comes up to me. I didn't even know he was in the class. And he's like, "Hey, man, TC, I'm glad you did that." I'm like, damn it, why are you in this class? Like, I can't be, what? Like, out of all the people I could be giving this talk to, like, why did you, who got shot in the chest, controlled cast, and did your thing and got an Air Force class, like, why did you have to be here, man? Like, so small right now. Like, why are you here?
Why did you have to be here?
Like,
this was my coming out party, cute.
I'm like, this is your fault. This is your fault, And he's like, no, dude. It's totally cool. He's like, I'm a student here. And these are my peers, and they know who I am. They know I'm like, we put our blues on whatever day we put our blues on. They see the chest out. They know who I am. He's like, but they can't hear it just from me. They have to hear it from others too, and that's what you did. And so God bless Rob, man. Like, he put me at ease because I felt about, I don't know, this big, give or take, of having to give this resiliency speech in front of a guy who's pretty fucking resilient. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm telling Rob Gutierrez, of all people, to be more resilient, of all people. And
well, I guess I'd say it's a good thing that you saw him afterwards instead of beforehand.
Oh,
instead of beforehand, right? Yeah, because you would just been like, "Dude, get up here, come on, just come tell the story."
Yeah, if I would know he was in the audience, I'm like, "Can I get the Senior Master Sergeant Rob Gutierrez up here, please? Tell your story. Please take the limelight away from me, because that's the thing, is like, I'm really, really good at public speaking, but that doesn't mean I'm comfortable doing it." And then, to your point, Peach, is like, I'm so glad, like, he's like, "Hey, I'm here. Thanks for saying what you said. It's important that you said what you said." Like I'm just thinking to myself, man, I really hope Rob's not giving me lip service, because the first time I met him was here at Nellis, and we were up working the 70 series ranges after he had recovered, and high-fiving each other. You know what I mean? So after his story. But yeah, man, we talk about these stories. We go through this process. We talked about one more. We talked about all these things. Like, dude, like such an amazing 25 years I've had. Such just like it's so cliche. And I probably said it in part one. Like so cliche where we talk about like for every bad day I've had in the Air Force, for every bad day I've had in special warfare, like I've had 30 good ones, man. You know, and it's been just phenomenal. It's been amazing. Like I can't understand. I can't say enough about my experiences, you know, and it's true what they say. Like Peaches, we're in the same Air Force, but my Air Force is different than your Air Force. And same thing with Trent, same thing with Aaron, you know, but we serve the same master at the end of the day. And literally as I sit here and I applied for retirement on Thursday, of course, that's a whole different story. If I had to actually denied retirement to do a 30-day extension. But anyway, it is what it is. So Peaches, to you and the crew, man, thanks for giving me this opportunity to tell that story on this podcast. I know you got tons of followers that are going to listen to these things, and it's such a great culmination of a career that I've had and the experiences that I've had and I've shared with others. And as we transition to this thing called retirement, you know, so yeah, man, it's been I've done a handful of podcasts. This is hands down been my favorite crew to do this with.
Yeah, well, man, we really appreciate that, and always you have an open invite to come on, especially and thinking about it, like, I mean, dude, we've been working together we've known each other for years now, but just at Nellis for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, as long as I've been here. But I honestly wasn't tracking that you had a kind of lecture series that is based in resiliency, and I, you know, in a world that is filled with a bunch of bullshit, like now, you know, and what we've done the last 2 years, and what we've put our kids through. I think the whole resiliency thing is important. You know, we've had Kate Gladden on to talk about resiliency from a teenage perspective, and adult really, but I think it would be cool to have you come on and do, your resiliency spiel, because I think that a lot of folks out there would benefit from it. So,
I would
try on tape here, but I'm okay with that because I've got my receipts, man. You know, I've got the receipts to back it up.
Yeah, no, for sure,
dude.
For sure.
You talk about the kids resiliency, man. Like that's so like my oldest son. He's 25. We have a relationship, but it's kind of icy. All my time away from home and all my time of asking for a knee and always being told to give one more has probably affected him more than the other 2 kids at the house at the time. You know, like we talked
without a doubt.
You talked about, you know, resiliency from a kid's standpoint. Like I would love to hear it because we spend so much time as military members talking about our resiliency and how, like, look how well put together I am. I'm amazing. You know, like, sign my book deal like today, but we never really, that's a good point, man. Like as the TACP Association president, I should probably pay a little more attention to that. So that's a great reminder.
Nope. It's valid. And I think right there, TC is a good spot to wrap it up, because we're sitting at about an hour now, and I don't want to get into any other topics that would take away from when we have you on for a third time.
Time. Yeah. Let's get it.
But again, so thanks for coming on.
Thank you for
telling your story. And then at the same time, like, obviously thanks for the support and the kind words and stuff like that. But, congratulations, from the most sincere place I can come. Congratulations on, applying for retirement. Glitter. And yeah. And I am looking forward to kind of this next year walking with you through that retirement process and however we can help. And I know, like, I say we can help because, you know, we have so many contacts when you're already in, you know, you've already got people, to include yourself and Ed Priest and folks like that looking out for you. You're going to be all right. But if there's ever anything that we can do to help that, we absolutely will. So for everybody that's out there, what's that?
That olive branch goes both ways. And, you know,
man.
Here with me in Vegas, dude, I expect to see you watching me be a blubbering mess up there on stage here in the next few months.
Oh, boy, I can't imagine.
As soon as I say Kathy, it's just going to be like,
Nice.
But awesome. For everybody that's out there listening, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a review, and then please join us again. Later.
There we go.